Good morning and welcome to It's How You'll Be Remembered. I am Julie Jones, your host and the CEO of Today's Professionals right here in Plano, Texas. And with me today, I am so excited to have Kristina Joy Carlson be with us. We met networking. Kristina, I am so glad to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm excited to be here with you, Julie, and grateful to our shared friend, Lynette Rogers, who connected us and just said, hey, we have so much in common and such a shared vision for the world and the impact we want to make that we needed to meet. So it's just great to be here with you.
No,
I'm thankful.
100%. I'm so glad that you are in my world now, in my circle. And thanks to Lynette Rogers, who is a wonderful connector of people. I hope she's watching. Lynette, if you're here, be sure and say hello. And if you are watching, we want to hear from you. Say hello to us. If you're watching on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or on YouTube, hear your thoughts on our conversation today about kindness and how we should be leading with kindness, both in our homes and in our businesses. That is really something that is missing, I think, in today's world, right?
Oh, absolutely, Julie. And that's why we've just launched a new company. We call it Outrageous Kindness. It's a method, a mindset, a movement that we're trying to create that really helps people acknowledge the fact that within them and within everyone, there is the power to make change in their lives, in their circumstances, in their work, and in their teams.
Yeah, so true. I always say that if you want to change your life, start by changing you.
Yeah.
You know, because we can't control other people. But we can control how we respond to other people. We can control us. We control our words and our actions. And I like to joke and say sometimes our words and actions may be easier to control than our facial expressions. Sometimes that's hard.
Absolutely. Well, you know, we say that mindset, the outrageous kindness mindset, is really rooted in the premise that how you show up. How you show up in every circumstance makes a difference, and you can show up and make a difference that's positive, but you know, you can also show up and make a difference that's negative and adds to chaos, adds to, you know, the grief and the heaviness of a moment. So yeah, it is that recognition that how you show up, the energy you bring, not the words that you say necessarily. Right. Certainly they have a lot to do with it, but it's how we act, how we behave that makes such a big difference.
Right. You have power, but the delivery really puts a oomph in the power of those words with the way you say it, your body language that goes with it, all of that really does matter. And
absolutely, whether you're a parent or a leader, you know, at work or even in your own life, I say all the time, you know, if you want people to eat broccoli, you have to eat broccoli. If you want people to show up in tough moments and keep their heads and keep their cool and find solutions, guess what you need to do? You know, if you want to teach your kids resilience, if you want your children to grow up making good decisions, first of all, you got to let them, right? You got to let them fail, but then you have to show them, how do you deal with disappointment? How do you deal with disruptions? Do you go off the handle, right? Or do you have a process for checking yourself and, you know, find any kind of circumstance?
You know, that is so true because people judge you and model your actions. So if your words and your actions don't match, it's called manipulation.
Well,
right? Do as I say, not as I do.
Well, and unfortunately, the way we're also isolated and disconnected and the algorithms that feed our social streams, right? It's a lot easier to scream about something and then walk away from it, really having not added to the circumstance or the thing that made us mad in the first place. You know, you just post something on the internet and then it's gone. But yet somehow you feel like maybe you made a difference. Well, maybe you did, maybe you didn't.
Maybe for 2 seconds, maybe, maybe. But there's also, I think, And we were talking about this, before we went live, in the green room, that really people will say whatever they think now. When I was growing up, and I think you'll agree with me here. We were always taught, if you can't say something nice, just don't say anything at all. Just let people be. But now it's, well, I have to confront everything. I have to put my views out there on social media. You have to say things that are hurtful, and I shouldn't care because I'm being me, I'm authentic. And there's a fine line from being authentic to yourself and really being detrimental to people around you.
One of the things we talk about with outrageous kindness, again, it's a mindset, a method, and a movement. And that method we call the KIND method, KIND, and each letter stands for something. K is know more, I, impact, N, navigate, and D, deliver. But that K, no more, that commitment to say, when I'm in a circumstance, I want to know more about you. I want to better understand your perspective, your ideas. That's where innovation, right, and creativity comes from. It's opening ourselves up to this. And if we're not being nice, right, if we're not being nice from the get-go, how are we going to invite you to share your perspectives? How are we going to invite you to be creative, how am I going to bring out the best in you and understand that and know more, that K in the KIND method? If I'm not being nice, you're not going to want to share all that with me.
No, you have to be
You're going to want to get rid of me as fast as you can, right?
It's funny. There are people in my life who have actually intimidated me. I had a mentor a few years ago. I was just so meek and mild and just such the people pleaser. And the first time I met him, he just intimidated me so much.
Yeah.
But as I began to get to know him, what I saw was he had a rough exterior and he was very direct in his approach, which was difficult for me.
Different for you.
But what I saw for him, through him, is that he had a heart to serve and a heart to help. And so maybe what he was saying to me was difficult for me to hear, but it was so helpful to me because he was trying to help me to be better. And that made all the difference.
Absolutely.
Right?
There is a kindness, right, in raising the bar for people. There is a kindness in pushing people to be their best. I think that's where and I know you had a recent podcast where you talked about, everybody getting a trophy and how detrimental that can be. I mean, part of being a leader, part of being a parent, sometimes is creating that expectation, that higher expectation, and then giving room, right? Giving room for you to find your way to get there. Support, yes, but lowering the bar or somehow not letting you strive to become all you can be. I mean, what kind of mentor would he have been if he had always been like, oh, Julie, that's great. Oh, Julie, I love everything you're doing. I mean, how's that going to push you, right, to want to do better or do more? It is in that raising that bar and setting an expectation and seeing what's possible. And helping people see what's possible in themselves. And there's different ways of doing that. Everybody's got their own style. I tend to be, very, very exciting and motivational and all that. But I mean, there are also times where it's just like, hey, this is the expectation. This is what I want out of you.
Exactly. And making people uncomfortable is sometimes the best thing you can do, because it is through the uncomfort that we grow.
And showing them how to live in uncomfortability. I hear a lot of the teams that I work with, corporate teams I work with, they all talk about, we got to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Okay, but show me how you do that. Show me how that's done, because we are not in a world that's good at that. So how do we build resilience, right? That's the N in the KIND method, navigate. What kinds of processes and procedures and human relations are we going to practice so people feel comfortable navigating, people feel comfortable in the uncomfortable? It doesn't just happen, right? We've got to create the environment and the opportunities to do that, and to say, it's okay if you don't have the answer. It's okay if you fail. It's
Yeah.
okay if this just blows up, just so
Right.
long as we learn from it and we don't keep doing the same things over and over again.
Well, and it's just, I used to teach math. And so, the first time you try a math problem, you're going to be like, I don't know. What do I do? Help me out. My students just say, help me. I don't know what to do.
Yeah,
So there's a process. And so you have to learn the process
absolutely.
and do it differently.
I've tried calculus many times though, and I have to say it still doesn't work for me. I
It
tried it
doesn't
in
work.
high
Yeah.
school, I tried it in college, and boy, you can give me a calculus math problem one more time and I'd still maybe go, ooh.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You don't need it in your life right now. So,
Oh,
but
I'm
if you
so
did,
grateful for
you
that.
would probably have a different mindset, approach it differently, go, okay, I got to learn this,
Yeah,
right?
I
But,
guess
but,
so.
you've determined, I don't need it, but I've taken it, I've been exposed to it, and I know that this is not something I need. I'm not going to spend the time to do it. But that was the thing, you have to have a purpose behind it.
Absolutely.
Um,
Well, and what a great segue. So I've said the kind method, right? The K is no more, the I is impact, right?
yeah.
You've got to connect to your why. Why are we doing this? What's our purpose? And when we look at, statistics, and Julie, I'm addicted to this Gallup poll that they did earlier this year, where they surveyed over 76% of the world adult population, 52 different countries and territories, 86% of the global gross domestic product represented. And they asked a simple question: what do you want out of a leader? What do you want out of a leader? And the number one answer was hope, right? They want hope. They want their leaders to help create hope,
Yeah.
trust, compassion, and stability, right? But it's that hope. It's that, give me a purpose, give me a sense that we are in doing something amazing, that somehow I can be a part of something amazing. That's the I in the kind method,
Yeah.
the impact, helping people find that purpose,
100%.
right? That passion in their work and in their lives. So important.
It's funny. I like to teach companies to focus first on their internal customers, to lead them and to say, our employees need to feel good about what they do. They need to have a culture where they're happy to go to. They need to understand that they're doing something that's purposeful and meaningful, and that they're doing something that touches them inside. And when those internal customers or employees are happy, they're going to take care of your external customers. That just is a natural flow, right?
Sure.
They're going to take care of them, because we always start with, well, we want our customers to be happy. But how do you make your customers happy? Well, you have happy employees, happy team members.
Yeah, so Julie, drill down on that for me, because I know from my own experience that doesn't mean having birthday parties for everybody, right? That it's a much deeper thing that one of my friends called forced fun, right? It's not all of the get to know you exercises and the quote team building. How do you advise? Because to me that's critical. How do you really create that kind of environment?
Yes.
And what are some of the things you're talking about with that?
Yes. Well, and here's what it is. It is a culture inside. It's that you hire people that all have a same value system that aligns with the company value system. And that you tap into something that's larger than what they are. So you recognize individuals, you meet their needs. That is the number one thing that employees want, is that their needs are being met. Whether that need is, I need to hear that I am valuable to this company. Sometimes it's simply like, Kristina, I'm so glad you're on the team. Your positivity is so great. You're always so nice and helpful. Sometimes it is somebody needs challenges. Hey, we have something new here and we need a leader, and you are good at problem solving. You want to help do this? Will you work with me on this? They're like, heck yes, because they're meeting a need internally. Sometimes people just need to serve the community. Maybe they have a passion for dog rescues. And I talked about this yesterday. Somebody said, I just hate that so many dogs are mistreated, so you come in with somebody who's a dog lover and say, you know what, why don't you organize a drive for our local shelter, or back to school supplies. They want to serve the community. So what are the needs? And you hire people that fit this culture, and then you meet their needs where they are. You always meet people where they are to bring them forward. And when you create that culture, and it starts with the individuals because they want to feel seen,
I talk about that a lot too, Julie, when I talk about the kind method and the K, no more. I think one of the biggest tests, if you will, of a corporate culture is just, who gets to talk when there's a meeting? Is there a role for everyone who's called to the table? Or is it one or two people that always end up, hogging the agenda? Or does everybody kind of hold back their ideas or their opinion until, they see what the CEO, being a CEO, being a leader is hard because it's very rare that people will disagree with you and share their perspectives. But yet that's what you want. They're table for a reason. So I think the way people conduct meetings is a good test of just how they're really telling everyone what you think, your experience, what you're bringing to the table is important. If someone's sitting in a meeting and there's nothing for them to say, then I don't know why they're on the team. Yeah, absolutely. I think the other big thing that I see so important as it relates to, just that corporate culture, if you will, is, making sure people understand, what does winning look like? I mean, are we trying to win the Super Bowl? Are we what are we trying to do? And I can't tell you how often in the work that I do, people struggle to not only understand the goals, but really see the goals as something that is building energy and not creating fear. Right? Are our goals inspiring us to action? Are these objectives? Is this dashboard that's measuring my performance? Is it helping me, be excited and inspired? Or is it really seen more as like this thing that's, creating fear? We see this a lot with the work we do with major gift teams at nonprofit organizations. They're all given these KPIs in this dashboard, and sometimes they're so misaligned with reality that it creates this sense of failure before they even go out and get started. So anyway, I love those.
So I want to say hello to Will. He's been up there for a while. I didn't see his comment when it first came in, but he says kindness is rooted in understanding. So good. Will, thank you so much for being with us today and in your comment. And I agree. And Will, have you experienced this in your workplace? Have you experienced somebody really seeking to understand you in your workplace? And how has it affected you? I'd love to hear more about that comment. But yes, Kristina, you were talking earlier, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to win the Super Bowl? Are we trying to crush our competition? There's a lot out there. Let's crush them. Let's, all the competitive people out there. And so, they're all about that competition. But here is what I have seen isn't always win. The most talented team doesn't win, but it's the team who came together. The team who has the heart, the team who wants it the most, the team who supports each other. There might be a star on the team, but the star lets the other people rise too, because they work together so well. And so I think when we talk about championships, it is the internal culture of the team that really
and it gets me back to the N in the kind method, right? The KIND, the N is navigate. And sports always create so many wonderful analogies. In fact, at one point I read a statistic about, like it's once every 20 minutes that a sports analogy is used in the corporate environment. But, here's the thing. Teams that win know how to take circumstances and make the most of it. Okay, we fumbled on the last play. What are we going to do? Are we going to sit and mope about it? Right? Or do we have a way we're going to address that? What's our defense going to do in response? How are they going to turn that turnover into something good for us? That's what teams that win understand. That's what people who win understand. You're sitting in that airplane seat and the kid behind you is kicking it like crazy. What are you going to do? Are you going to let the circumstance control the mindset that you have at that moment? Or are you going to continue to practice outrageous kindness in spite of what might be happening? I talk a lot about different friends in my life, and one has a beautiful restaurant here in Oxford, Mississippi, and I just love it so much. In fact, I'm excited I'm eating there today, Volta. But there's not a day that doesn't go by that somebody doesn't show up to work, or that a delivery she was counting on didn't happen, or there's a customer that's just a royal jerk. And what keeps that business going, and they just celebrated, a work anniversary that's unbelievable in the restaurant business. But what keeps them going is their culture, kind of what you were talking about earlier, that they're just committed to being good to each other in spite of whatever happens.
Right.
And there's not a day that doesn't go by for her where something doesn't happen.
Right.
So learning that navigating is so important.
Yeah, Susan, hello. She says, make the pivot your friend. You're right. If it doesn't work, pivot and then understand that this is the direction we need to be in. It goes back to embracing the change, being uncomfortable and saying, you know what, we can move forward. We can make the most of that. Susan, we're so glad that you are here. Thank you so much for joining us. And let us know, have you pivoted recently? Have you had to pivot or somebody at your company? We'd love to know more about that. You were saying something a while ago, and it just went out the window. I was going to add to what you were saying, but I guess it will come back. It will come back. I want to say too, I know what it was. I think that sometimes being kind, and it goes back to my mentor, who was a little bit direct and made me be uncomfortable. Kindness sometimes means that you let people figure it out themselves. Back to my blog that I did the other day on it was a LinkedIn newsletter on the unintended consequences of everybody gets a trophy, which there is sound advice to let's celebrate everyone. Everyone is special, but then you devalue those who are actually working and winning. Like you crush that competitive edge, because there are people out there who need to compete. That's a need that they have. But I think too, when we have what's called lawnmower parents today. And so lawnmower parents go in and they clear the path for their kids. And so this is what's actually happened. There was an intelligent.com survey. They talked to hiring managers and said, what are you seeing? And things like the number one thing that they were seeing was lack of eye contact. We can't look at each other. But it was actually 19%, almost 20%. That's 1 in 5 applicants brought their parents to a job interview. Mm-hmm. So kindness would be, look, I'm here to support you. Good luck. I'll help prepare you. I'll ask you questions. I'll do all the behind the scenes things, and I'll, help you buy a new outfit. I'll help, whatever it is, I'll help you prepare. But when it comes time to the interview, let your child, who is an adult, if they're out of college, stand on his or her own, because this is part of leaving the nest. It's part of becoming an adult. And so that to me is more kind than showing up to the job interview so that you can interview for your child.
Oh, well, Julie, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'm a big believer in, helping your child, right, find their own way and not fighting their battles for them. Yeah. As early as 3rd grade with my own son, if he'd come home with, a bad grade or whatever, and he wasn't happy about it, I would encourage him to talk to his teacher. I would encourage him to think about why that may or may not have happened. Now, that's not to say that there weren't times when I intervened because I thought something was gravely wrong. but I tried my best to always encourage him to figure it out, you know, to understand it, to try to look at the circumstance in a bigger or better way. Now, again, getting back to my, you know, my thought I shared earlier, if you're going to eat if you want your kids to eat broccoli, you have to eat the broccoli, right? You've got to show that you're doing that as well, that when bad things happen, when unexpected things happen, when things don't go your own way, that you're looking for a different perspective, that you're trying to learn from those moments instead of just, you know, blabbing about it on the World Wide Web. So, you know, absolutely your words matter, but your actions matter. Helping your children. I mean, you know, being a parent is being a leader, helping your children get the best out of themselves and to believe in themselves and believe that they can handle bad situations and overcome them on their own. One of the most kind things you can do, right, is to help someone learn that they're capable. And, you know, we see that in the world of philanthropy today, especially global philanthropy, to save the day. No, it's shifting to say, look, there are resources everywhere, every community, every moment, there are resources. And sometimes it takes outside financial support to bring those resources to life, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. That somehow that moment is, oh, these poor people, they're never going to be able to do anything. Well, no, yeah, they probably could if they were given the opportunity in the moment. Somebody believed they were capable, you know, of doing something, that they have opinions and ideas and talents that were worth drawing out. And we see this especially, you know, in that global humanitarian space where they're finding that their programs are so much more effective, right? When they engage the local community and they invite the local community to be a part of saying, this is what we need. This is how we can create lasting change here with the philanthropy, with the contributions that you're bringing here.
That's right. That's right. I want to say, Susan said, happy to. And so, yeah, we'd love to hear more about you. So, you know, I think that brings us back to full circle, you know, and that really kindness is about the way you make other people feel, and that you have to be approachable, and that you are a better leader when people see you as approachable, as kind, maybe not soft. I mean, kindness doesn't equal soft. I used to no, I used to always say never confuse my kindness with a weakness. Kindness is a strength, but you can give tough love to somebody and still be kind.
Absolutely.
So I think that's, you know, really a great way for us to end this, is to say, you know, think about how you're coming across, because other people have to see you as someone that they can come to, somebody who has their interest in mind. People don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care about them, about the cause. They really want to know that you have somebody else's interest in mind other than yours.
And you know, Julie, I would just add, because I know we just have a quick time, outrageous kindness, I always say, starts with being kind to yourself. And it's really hard to show up for others if you're not showing up for yourself. So thank you so much for this time with you. I've enjoyed this conversation so much.
So well. Yeah, it's always great to talk to you. And so again, Lynette, thank you so much for seeing the synergy with Kristina and I. We are definitely on the same page here. If you want to know more about Kristina and what she's doing, the work she does, go to outrageouskindness.com. Kristina, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and being kind to us. And I look forward to doing more with you.
I look forward to it too, Julie. Thank